Hey, Sound Engraver here. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to part 5 of my dynamic expression series in SuperCollider. Today we're going to be looking at bypassing, and we've got two oscillators that can be pretty effective with this. LF pulse in particular over here. Now, as you can see, I've got my list of oscillators. You can check them out on a previous video, or you can see the documents on my Pastebin webpage, Sound Engraver. Just go to Pastebin and Sound Engraver, and you've got quite a handful of SC docs there. So I won't go through all the oscillators here, but two of them are very good for bypassing, LF saw and LF pulse. LF saw is a little, I would say, weaker in this instance, and you'll see why in just a second. Let me go ahead and evaluate this. So you can see it starts at value 0, right at that neutral value, then to the maximum value of 1, maximum amplitude in this case, to an instantaneous drop to 0. So a rise to 1 and an instantaneous drop to 0. And this linear motion to rise and then fall instantaneously can be effective for, you have this growing sound and then you're switched off. So it's kind of like a mute button, right at the climax of the sound, and then an immediate drop into nothing, really, silence. So that can work, especially if you're working with some effective thing like a musical effect, like a crescendo. So that's LF saw. But what's even better is LF pulse here, and you will see why when I evaluate this plot graph. And this is much better. This is like pressing mute, releasing mute, on a soundboard or something like that. So we've got the maximum value at 1 here, so all sound, and then nothing. So peak amplitude or maximum, I wouldn't say peak, I would say maximum amplitude, then 0 amplitude. So, sound off, sound mute. And you can do this for as long or as little as you want, depending. So this is great. I think LF pulse will be the way to go. But let's go ahead and hear them both. I've got some copious notes that you'll be able to see on this doc on Pastebin. Here is our sound file. We've got patterns, or something I called patterns. Here is my synth. And bear with me, it's about 17 seconds. All right, it's long, but it's got a great cutoff at the end, so there we go. So this synth def down here, we're down here, it's our synth def for our audio file, which is great. We've got a list of arguments, including amp, the attack of the sound file, the release, a curve value, a buffer number. Of course, we just keep it at 0 because it's just one sound file, and start position, pan, out, and all that good stuff. We've got our signal, which is our sound run through the playbuff UGen, giving it its number of channels, buffer number, and then scaled. You got to use this. I had a video on this that you should check out. It's very handy. I don't know how handy it was for like 8 years, but this buffer rate scale is a UGen that helps scale your current playback speed, whichever that is, with the audio server's playback speed, as long as you scale it at the original rate of that audio file. So very, very handy. I would just go ahead and do that as a default, even if your audio file and your audio server has, they both have the same sampling rates, but just, it's good. It's like a little safety net. Just do it. Trust me. It'll save you some headaches in the future, I promise. So anyway, I'm not going to play the sound file again. This is just the standard synth. We're going to continue with this synth. This is our foundation, but instead of the envelope here, which would normally release the synth or the sound file, we're going to replace it with a modulator. And that modulator is going to be our handy dandy LF saw, which we saw, that slight triangle wave. It's not a tri-wave, it's a sawtooth wave, but that linear ramp up and then that instant drop. So quite nice. We've got an output of 1 cycle per second using a minimum to maximum amplitude. So in this case, pretty much from nothing to the maximum value of 1. And I have this at the overall output at half that, so might make sense, but at least you'll hear the motion of the sound file. I think it makes sense. I think this is just a really loud sound file. That's why I brought it down. So let's go ahead and do that. And let's see what that sounds like. All right, good. It's kind of long, but that's okay. But you heard that really nice ramp up and then a drop. Not really bypassing, not really using that mute button per se, the automatic mute button, but still pretty good, pretty effective. I'm just going to categorize it as bypassing, even though you do hear that ramping up of sound. Let's do that again though and do different values. So as I have here, try different pulse values. I shall. So in this case, this will be the cycle traversing once over the span of 4 seconds. So it should be 2 seconds of ramping up to the peak or the maximum amplitude, then an instant drop, and then from the negative to the positive value, or non-positive to positive, another 2 seconds. So sounds a little different, and then I'll go between those values. Okay, so the sound file, oh, I forgot to free the synths there. Let me go ahead and do that. These little white boxes here are synths, and because I don't have an envelope, they stay there, so I will have to manually free these synths, so something to consider. And if you are stuck, because this right here, was releasing the latest synth that played, so the first synth is still stuck there, just go ahead and do command period. That's all. That is the way I'm so used to doing that for all my years of SuperCollider. So that is that. So again, it's effective. It's got a nice linear crescendo. So beautiful music effect. But LF Pulse is the true bypassing nature. It's the same synth that we just used for LF Saw. I'm only changing the modulator. So instead of LF Saw, it's LF Pulse. Same thing, 1 cycle per second. But now we're going to have at least 1 second of sound and 1 second of silence, if I had that correctly. I think just so we do hear it, let me go ahead and put this at our maximum amplitude. So every second, it was the sound coming in and then falling or dropping. And from what I could hear, it was actually within a second. So sound silence, sound silence, sound silence. That's at least what I heard. And I think the way the cyclic motion is concerned, I think that's exactly what's happening. Let me go ahead and evaluate that again and play with some values. So in this case, with the 1/8, that is 1 cycle traversing over the span of 8 seconds. So what does that mean? Well, you're going to have 4 seconds of sound at its maximum amplitude and then 4 seconds of silence. That is a wonderful bypassing effect, if I do say so myself. 4 seconds and then 4 seconds of silence. It's pretty cool. I like it. So, right, it's just like pop. So LF Pulse is the go-to oscillator for the bypassing effect. Let's add a done action value, which will free the synth. So pretty much the same. We're going to stay with LF Pulse here. Pretty much the same synth, but we will be adding a done action value to our playbuff UGen. So we don't need an envelope for this. We can fit this right in with our playbuff UGen and include it in our arguments list. So we've got our arguments here. I am just adding DA with the value of 2. You can name it anything you want. DA, done action. It's pretty straightforward like that. It must be value 2 to free the synth. And it's over here. And it should be good after 17 seconds of running all the way through to the last frame. It should release itself. And we'll just go ahead and add another few values as we listen. So that's good. So you just have your done action value there. It releases the synth when you're done, and it is all clean. Now, if you like arguments of the play buff gen, for instance, spelled out, this is a nice clean way where you go vertical. The list, num channels first, buff num, rate, start position, and done action. You don't have to spell it like this. This is just really clear, especially for something like granular synthesis that has this large list of arguments. I like things spelled down and then, like vertically, like a list. So it's just something not necessary, but if you like to stay organized, it's pretty good. Now we're going to loop it. And what we have to do with our synth, pretty much the same thing. We're just adding a loop argument, and I have named it loop. The loop must be 1 for it to be true. And if it's true, it's going to loop the sound file as soon as the sound file hits or pretty much finishes that last frame of the audio file, goes to the 0th frame, starts all over, just like a looping effect. If it's at 0, that is false, so it won't loop anymore. And you can set it to loop after an indefinite amount of time, or whenever you want to in the process of a performance or something like that, or recording. So we're going to go ahead and check that out. Now, one important thing is that if your loop is not set to 0 in the synth-def, you can't really have a done action value of 2. That done action value will not be evaluated if the loop is set to 1. If it's set to 0, you can, but we do want a loop, so we will have to manually free the synth. Let's go ahead and check this out. Whoops. All right, let's set to 0. Whoa. Oh, I must have. Oh, see, I usually don't do that. I must have set it to 0, for it to stop looping pretty much right at the end. I wasn't really paying attention because of all the silly values I was putting in. But it's in there, that little box there. Let's go ahead and free it, and then we're good to go. So yeah, LF Pulse. I mean, a little bit of LF Saw, but definitely LF Pulse is perfect for bypassing a synth, different sounds, maybe even a percussion kit, or just anything involving an audio file. So that's pretty fun. I really enjoyed that. So that was a fun experimentation for me. So hopefully you liked it. Maybe you'll integrate it into your own SuperCollider compositions. So that's everything from me. Take care. Keep producing and preserving that good music you love, and keep having fun with that experimentation. And I will see you later.